think screen is visible?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. So the methods of data collection. So already we know we have two types of, or the data is classified into two categories. One is primary data, second one is secondary data. Now what exactly is primary data? Can anybody tell me what is primary data? I think already we have done an experiment on this. Primary data collection. Can anybody? What is primary data? See, whatever through Google Forms, what data you have collected earlier on one of the topics, I think you have, all of you have done that exercise? Collection of data through Google Forms?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Yeah, that is what is like collecting the data like that is primary data. And the secondary data is the one which is readily available on the websites or any other social platform or from certain government offices or from the hospitals, whatever you collect, or even the satellite pictures, what you collect. Those which are saved already, they all come under this secondary data class. And what you have collected, that is one way of collecting the primary data. We'll see today different other forms of collection of this primary data. So among them are, apart from your through Google Forms, whatever you collect, the second one is observation method. And the next one is interview method. You interview a person and collect some information. You prepare a questionnaire, then ask accordingly, go on asking the questions to the person whom you are interviewing, and through that interview you can collect the data. Then just floating the questions, like in the classroom and all, if you want to collect some data, we prepare the first-hand questionnaire and float it or circulate it to all the students in the form of simple forms or sheets, then collect the information or opinion of them. This is through the questionnaire. Then through schedules. Schedules are nothing but again questions only, but put it in a staggered different manner. And there are other methods of collecting this primary data. So what are the other types of this primary data collection? So you have what are known as warranty cards, distributor audits, pantry audits, consumer panels, using certain mechanical devices, say our sensor data and all what we collect. Directly we conduct the experiments and collect the sensor data. Such things come under this using devices, that category. Through projective techniques. Projective techniques means directly you are not collecting, through that you are interpreting certain data on the basis of some amount of data. So you are projecting that information. If this is existing, then that means it should be existing. So like that you project that information. So that is projective technique method, or some kind of even extrapolation. Like already some data is existing with you, so you try to extrapolate it using the existing data. So, and depth interviews. Now these depth interviews are nothing but sort of these interviews only, but not necessarily taken on one go. Like today some part, say tomorrow second part. Like that in a staggered manner or the time-based manner, what you collect the data, that is depth interviews. And then content analysis. So some kind of cases what you study through that. So first let me tell in detail what is this observation method. Already one of the methods we have seen. So later we'll discuss in detail about the other methods. Now what is this observation method? So this is most commonly used method, especially in studies relating to behavioral sciences. So what is this behavioral science means? Say, take for example, some example with a psychiatrist. Now why people go to psychiatrist? basically they have some issues related to their social behavior or certain their mental issues. So under such cases, what the doctor does, he definitely questions him. Along with that, he is observing his body language, not only through whatever he answers. You might have heard actually they are asked to draw some pictures or what exactly they understand by looking at those pictures, some dogs, cats, or human beings in different like behavioral patterns. They are given some barking dogs, some silent dogs, sleeping dogs, like that. No, they are given in different manner. Or even the human beings which are shouting, which are laughing, which are smiling, which are dancing, like that, to whom they relate themselves to. Under such cases, the doctor not only gives the questionnaire, along with that, the patient is being observed by the doctor. How exactly looking at a picture his behavior is. On that behavior, he draws some conclusions. He gets some data. So this is by observation method. Similarly, the same case holds good even with the children. Children in the growing stage, usually their body language is studied. Later on, their verbal language is assessed. What is their body language? How the walking style is? You might have seen some people with, like, they walk in a dancing manner. Some people very confident and with their shoulders and chest stretched like that. So, on the basis of this, some conclusions you can draw about their background, how they are brought up. Some are very timid kind of a people, where the shoulders are clenched inside, such people. Now, what exactly these things, these observations reveal them? They basically reveal what is the background, what the person is undergoing, or what kind of a person is this. So, these are different aspects you get from observation method. So, observation for any issues related to behavioral issues or behavioral problems of a person, these are the observation method is the only way. If you give a questionnaire, if the person is in senses, he may hide the questions and answer differently. What is actually he is undergoing, he may not answer it in the fear of revealing something unwanted. So under such cases, observation method helps a lot. So usually the doctors go by this method. Wherever the personality assessment is being made, wherever the behavioral assessment is being made, always observation method is the best. And this may be combined with some questionnaire. So observation becomes a scientific tool and the method of data collection for the researcher when it serves a formulated research purpose, is systematically planned and recorded, and is subjected to checks and controls on validity and reliability. First, collect the data by this observation method, and before inviting a person to study or before giving a questionnaire, once the questions are set, a series of questions are asked. Now, these questions have to be validated for their reliability. Now, what exactly this validation means? Now, I will give example of a school teacher or a college teacher only. Say, for example, now I want to collect the feedback from you all about, say, research methodology subject. Here, what I do, whatever points I want, I prepare a questionnaire. I prepare a set of questions before floating to you all. Then I find out, see how the subject is. Are you finding it interesting? Is your teacher giving you the correct details? Is your teacher giving you enough number of examples? The suitable examples are available for you in the book or in the internet, or your teacher is giving. Like that, I start the questions related to the subject. Now these questions, suppose if I put, how useful you find this subject? In between, I use. See, these earlier questions, what I asked were relevant to one another. Now suddenly I pose a question where, how useful this subject to you? Are you in a position to explain it now? Unless you think of its utility later, or unless I give good number of exercises to you such that you find the utility of those points or whatever the subject you are studying in those experiments. If you don't find them useful at all, whatever methods you have studied, whatever cases we have dealt with, often I have taken the example of your COVID-19 or the vaccines. So unless these methods or this one is not relevant to you, you will not know, you will not understand the utility of this particular subject or the methods or the tools, whatever you have studied here. So in between, if I ask you this question, breaking the line of my questions, you find it irrelevant there. Instead, if I ask this in the end, after going through all the methods, all the sample design techniques or the sampling techniques and the collection of data methods, and then sufficient number of examples I give there, after conducting, and I ask you to come out with certain, say how we did the primary survey. Similarly, I ask you to collect some secondary data, then compare them. What is the utility of this? What is the utility of that? And how authentic each data is. So after studying all those things, then in the end, if I ask you this question, say how useful is your research methodology subject? Then you will start thinking, before studying this subject, what I was, after studying and implementing for my own problem definition, how useful it is. Then you will be able to answer it in a better way. So here, validity and reliability mean this: how relevant each question is to the subject as well as to the earlier understanding of the subject. So these are the two checks whenever you design any question bank or questionnaire. These two have to be very, very carefully validated first thing. So first you have to check the reliability and then validate that. So these two basically make use of your alpha, whatever we studied in your hypothesis testing. So that alpha level or significance level, how significant the question is, how significant this particular topic is, how significant this particular subject is, what is the significance level pertaining to a certain example. So when you do all this checking, then if anything has to be added there, you observe some things, you give some input. So finally, the outcome is the improved questionnaire. So these two, validity and reliability tests, are carried out for any questionnaire which is set. Then you come across there, the ANOVA test and all are there. No? Those things you carry out on these things, these questions, set of questions. They decide how reliable a particular set of data or the questions are. Then you validate them with an example, with another data set. So doing this, the relevance of that particular questionnaire, that you have not put any irrelevant question into the set or any question which is not actually collecting the information what you want. So such things are removed. So these two points, the validity and reliability, always the questions are subjected and then with the help of some controls and checks, they are modified. So in any primary survey method or even the secondary data collection method, these are always carried out. So in the ANOVA test and all, there you come across this, how exactly these are done. So the main advantage of this method is that subjective bias is eliminated. In the observation method, the bias is eliminated. Now, what exactly I mean by bias is, earlier also I pointed out at some point where the person doesn't want to reveal whatever he is really feeling through the questionnaire alone. He tries to hide the information. By observation method, if the observer is really good and experienced, you cannot hide this. See, this you might have experienced whenever a question is asked to you. When online, okay, you may say that you try to like beat around the bush and tell that, okay, this is what is your answer. But when we are facing one to one, definitely a teacher, when he or she is posing a question, on the body language, by observation, will be able to collect more information than what you are revealing through online, right? So like this, the main advantage of this method is that subjective bias is eliminated if observation is done accurately. If the observer or if the person who is doing this observation method of data collection is experienced, then it really good. So in this observation method, you have different classes like the structured observation, unstructured observation, participant observation, and non-participant observation. Now structured is just now I gave, no? Like the relevant questions only are planned, like properly they are structured, why a particular question has to be asked to collect what type of information, and what is the data it is implying to you, what other data you can get from that. So it is properly designed, structured. Unstructured is like at the last minute also you start asking, okay, oh yeah, this is the thing, okay. You are not intending actually planning, or you have already not planned about it, but still you start collecting some data about that. So this is unstructured. Structured one is a planned, and all this validity and reliability checks are done on the questionnaire. That kind of a data is through structure. The next one is participant observation. This participant observation also, we have done it in our primary data collection experiment, where you all have, for other students, like one student is presenting the primary data, the other 8 people were involved in that. So they were also part of this. So this is participant observation, and non-participant is the one person goes and collects the information, where completely it is not revealed, kind of a disguised observation, where the participant is not directly involved in the observation method. So these two we have already in the primary data collection, how we collected the views of the others, we have seen this. So these are the different ways how exactly the observation method helps in collecting the primary data, and these are the main points. Now, whenever there is any method associated, there are certain advantages and disadvantages associated with any of these methods. So what are the limiting factors or limitations of this observation method? First thing, it is going to be quite expensive and also time consuming. Now, why expensive method? Suppose I want to collect data from say 1,000 people. All 1,000 have to be observed by an experienced person, or preferably by the same person, because again views of other people definitely change, or trained under the same person for the same points, he has to be observing the person. So this is going to be very, very expensive and time consuming. And also completely by observation means the information provided is definitely going to be limited. In a limited short period of time, the observation method may not reveal the data whatever you are expecting. The same thing, The questionnaire may reveal more information within lesser time. And once you float it, see, already you have done it, like the Google Forms. Within 10 minutes, you collect the information from all people. It is a parallel process. Through the survey, it is a parallel process. Whereas this individual interaction and observation definitely takes more time and limited information is revealed. Sometimes unforeseen factors may interfere with the observation task. Now, what exactly this unforeseen? Sometimes you may tend to ask more questions. If the person is revealing something else away from your topic of interest, away from what you are trying to collect information about through this observation. So you may get diverted to other topics, which you are not intending to collect the information about. So such interference may be there, and this may affect further data collection, further observation method. The next point is, some people are rarely accessible to direct observation. Naturally, if you want to collect information from, say, a film star or a cricketer, it is definitely not easy. So similarly, there are so many other people from other profession who are not ready for this kind of a direct observation method. So you may not get the data from all those classes of people. Some walks of life or some classes of people you may get it, but from everybody, if you are collecting the data from observation method, it may not be practical. It may create obstacles for this method of data collection effectively. So when you are not able to collect the data from observation method from all classes of life or all walks of life, you may not get the data, or your research, whatever you are doing, may not be applicable to all walks of life. So it may be a hindrance. Under such cases, you have to opt for other methods of data collection. Observation method may fail in collecting the data. So these are the limitations of this. So to overcome this, there are other methods what we have listed just now. So we'll go ahead with other types. The next one is interview method. Now interview method is basically you are the person who is going to interview. Observation method, you may be a simply observer, somebody else can be collecting the data, or even you can also observe and collect the data. But here in the interview method of collecting data involves presentation of oral, verbal stimuli and reply in terms of, again, oral or verbal responses. So it is like you are asking a question and you are getting the answer. So that answer you are recording it because that involves your data. This method can be used through personal interviews and, if possible, through telephonic interviews. These days, the personal interviews are becoming difficult. So usually, the personal interviews are not conducted through telephonic conversations. The interviews are being conducted. So this is another way of data collection. And interview method you have seen. Many interviews you have seen on the television or even YouTube also. You have so much of information. So interview method is quite effective in collecting one-to-one kind of a data. Again, these cannot be applied for all types of data what you want to collect. Okay. The next one is questionnaire and schedules. Okay, now questionnaire and schedules, usually there is a confusion. Now what is the difference between these two? Questionnaire, all of us know. Like some questions are prepared and they undergo some reliability and validity test. And once that is done, you are ready with the questions and you float them any point of time. On the selected group of people or the sample size, you float the questions, collect the data. It can be in the form of hard copy or it can be in the form of soft copy through Google Forms. So this is a typical example of a question. Now schedules. Schedules are basically the ones which are planned with certain sample set. The samples are fixed. Say I gave other day the example of the vaccine related info. Now when I want to collect the vaccine related info, how many people are vaccinated with only one dose, how many are vaccinated with second dose as well. Also, we took an example of whether Covaxin they have taken or Covishield they have taken or they have opted for another type or Sputnik or something we had taken, right? So now when you want these, here your sample is fixed. Like people who have taken Covishield is one group, people who have taken Covaxin is another group, people who have taken Sputnik or J&J or whatever is another group. So like this, in schedules, you are scheduling that, okay, this specific group. Again, the same questionnaire is floated, but to a specific model, a specific group like this. So there is much resemblance in the nature of these two methods. So because of this, you may tend to get confused here. So from the practical point of view, the two methods can be taken to be more or less same, but applicable to certain set of people only. So schedules are on certain set of samples or people only, but the method is again through questions. So this is the only minor difference. There is no, clear-cut line of demarcation other than this. So what are the other methods of data collection? Now for other methods of data collection, whatever so far we studied, say interview method, questions method, or through the primary survey like the forms are floated, or observation method. So some combination of these are also done in other methods of data collection. Now what exactly you mean by combination? Say consumer panels. Now what exactly these consumer panels are? These panels constitute few people where one interviewer asks the questions. Now these panel members, they voice their different opinion. It is not one-to-one, but it is combined questionnaire plus observation plus the answers also you are getting back. So there are three methods combined in one consumer panel. So like this, combined methods come under this other methods of data collection, because these same methods cannot be adopted for different set of research problems. Depending upon your research definition or research problem or the problem definition, your samples are different, your target audience are different. As a result, the same type, one or two types cannot be adopted to collect the data from these people or from these samples. So under such cases, what is done is partially 2-3 methods are combined and one method is formed See, that's what the consumer panel example is. Here you have somewhat like the observation method, some questionnaire also, like sort of interview. Plus, already the structured questions are planned to ask to all the panel members. So here you are combining three methods into one to collect the data. So this is something like a consumer panel. Similarly, using the devices. Now suppose when you are, we have taken the example of say refinery or the furnaces and all, where the monitoring of different processes is being done. So through some devices, through some sensors, the data is collected and processed, and you are sitting and collecting that data. On the basis of that data, you are planning to manage something else. So under such cases, using these devices of different type, one may be sensing temperature, another may be sensing humidity, another may be sensing the oxygen level. So all these are put together to collect the total set of data, not one type of data. So for that, you are making use of some devices. These devices could be in the form of electronic devices or mechanical devices or combination. And in some cases, exclusively mechanical devices also may be used. Say, whenever you are trying to see the road quality. So the information regarding the road quality or accidents, you are trying to find the information, or the width of the roads or the congestion happening in the roads. Under such cases, what is done? You use some mechanical devices to see the health of the road, then how the speed breakers are designed, whether they are designed scientifically or anywhere the speed breakers are designed, what gaps they are designed, how the roads are, whether they are very steep, narrow, or curvy. So to do all this at regular points, some mechanical devices are fixed, and from them you are collecting the data. So here also you are combining three methods. Observation is there, plus actual data collection by traveling through the devices, through the cars or two-wheelers is done. So like this, by combining three methods, again in the use of mechanical devices, you are combining different processes and then collecting one type of data. So after collecting this data, what you do is, there are some techniques where projections are brought out from these. Some data you have collected, on the basis of that, some projection is carried out. Say, in a mountain region, you want to fix up, say, your towers, mobile towers. Under such cases, what is done? You collect the contour data, then how exactly the next contour may be. So you try to project it by collecting some altitudes, attitudes, those things. Using that, you are projecting the next set of data. It may not be 100% accurate, but definitely it gives you some information regarding the data. It may not be 100% accurate, authentic, but that data can be, assuming like somewhat like missing data, what we had discussed, like that, this data can be utilized for having large data whenever you want the huge data, but you have collected lesser information. Under such cases, these projective techniques are very, very useful. The next one is depth interviews. So it is same interview method only, but depth interviews means like in part wise. Suppose somebody is trying to write a biography of somebody. Under such cases, what is done? In one day, the person cannot sit with the writer and give the details of his entire life. So under such cases, what is done? To collect the authentic information is divided into, say, some 15 days. A person sits with him 15 days, lives with him, then keeps on asking questions at regular intervals, or morning routine, how it is, afternoon routine, how he is. what is his health condition, which doctor he visits, all those things are observed and collected using these depth interviews. So for such cases, these depth interviews are very, very useful. So the content analysis. Now what exactly this content analysis means? It is again partially, you carry out certain experiments, collect the data, then whatever data you have collected with another timeline also you collect the data and analyze what exactly these two data depict. So such ones come under this current content analysis. So the first three, these cards, distributor or store audits, these are nothing but the informations which are stored there from a person. Primarily, they store the information in some kind of a file or something that is analyzed. Similarly, the pantry audits as well. So they basically are the stored informations from the individual. They are used by another person as data.